Okay, now I'd like to start talking about the next element of position evaluation, which is piece activity. And I'll tell you one thing. I think this is an element which is, or a factor in the position and evaluation, which is often overlooked. Personally, I rather have a great piece activity and be down upon than to be up upon and have poor piece activity. So what is piece activity? What am I getting at? Well, I define piece activity as I split it between piece, maybe piece mobility, which I break down into which I subcategory of pawn structure and center control and coordination. Now, these aren't the only factors, but probably the predominant factors. So first I want to talk about piece mobility. So looking at this example on the board, we can see for black has great piece mobility and white has poor piece mobility. So even though material is even, they each have 3 pawns, a bishop, a knight, a queen, and of course a king. But if you look at black, here black's queen can move practically to anywhere on the board. And this is true when a piece is centralized, meaning when it falls, especially on one of these 4 squares, a piece always reaches its maximum move potential or mobility from these squares, or it can reach its potential mobility while in the center. So the black queen can move anywhere, and then this bishop here too also can make many different moves. I mean, it can move practically, here and here, and it can move practically anywhere. Not to say these moves are good, but it has a lot of potential mobility. And the knight here too also can move. Now, if we look at the pieces for white, like this bishop here, it really can't move anywhere. It's sort of blocked in by this pawn here, and it really can only make one move. Now this knight here, while it can move to different, it could, theoretically it can move here, but it's not going to be captured. Same with this square. And if it moved here, it would just get captured right away. So while the knight could move the 3 different squares, it really can't move to any of them. So this is what I am getting to with piece mobility. And maybe I should say that piece mobility also has a factor in it of making a useful move. I mean, if you think about it, probably if you looked at this bishop for white, moving backwards to here just is not going to do too much. So while I can move there, it isn't really going to help out. Sort of like maybe this bishop here, it can move back to here, but probably is not going to do too much, or even back to here. But moves like here, moving the bishop to there would have would be a very good move, because it would now seek to control these lines or these squares here. And once it did move here, this bishop, it could easily, since it's so mobile, it can move back to here and still perform the same type of function. So there's an element of that in piece mobility. Hopefully this is making sense. Now let's put this up on the screen again. Usually the piece mobility is defined by the pawn structure. This is one of the reasons why pawn structure is so important. It tells us how we can get the most potential mobility out of our pieces. And I'll cover that in just a bit. And then center control. I think I mentioned this in a very earlier lecture about the principles of the opening about center control. And I did mention there that the reason you want to control the center is for the mobility of the pieces. So when you control the center, and if you put a piece in the center, once again, the piece can reach its maximum amount of mobility. But the other thing about controlling the center is that most of the attacks in chess are going to occur through the center. So pieces are going to move through the center to attack the other side. So therefore you need to control it. And also through the center is the most direct method for attacking your opponent. So because if you have to go around the center, it's going to take you an extra move or two to get to your opponent. So it makes your attacks slower. So controlling the center makes quicker attacks and also quicker defenses. Not controlling the center makes your attacks slower. Your attacks slower. So pawn structure. So your pawn structure will define various elements. And I flashed this up here because the pawn structure will show you which diagonals are open for the bishops. Basically, bishops want open diagonals. Knights need advanced outposts, and you can find these outposts. And an outpost is a square where you can put a piece where it's not easily dislodged by your opponent. So knights need advanced outposts to become effective. And rooks like open lines, so where there's a half open file or an open file, that's where your rooks are going to go. So, and that's where the rooks are going to get their most amount of mobility. So let me set up a board position to show you this. Okay, here's a game I found in my database, and we'll only look at it for piece mobility, or for pawn structure, I guess, is you can look at the pawn structure for both sides. For white, you can tell like where would white want to put its pieces, or for mobility. Obviously, maybe white would like to have a knight here because this pawn would be supporting the knight there, even though it could be recaptured. So maybe white would like to put its knight there, but it can easily be dislodged if like black plays its pawn up to here. But maybe what I was getting at is both sides are seeking active piece play, or should be. And if we look at it from white's point of view, this bishop here is pretty active, especially with the queen being along this diagonal. This bishop here, it could get active if this piece here was pawn was moved. This knight here is ready to jump into the battle. And for black, this knight here is pretty well posted, but can easily be dislodged. And this knight here is not very active. It needs to get up into the battle. Obviously, you can't move to either one of these two squares, but black's idea is actually to probably play one of these two pawns forward, making a break. So I think in the game, white played b4, stopping the advance of the c-pawn, and then black placed its bishop on a more active square, now looking along this diagonal. And now white played e4, evicting the knight. You're saying, well, and it did, so it's going to make the knight move, and it actually just made this bishop have a lot more activity. And now the knight will move away, and then e5, and now the bishop has to move back to a less active square, as we can tell that this bishop here has been pushed back to less activity. So is this knight, and what white has done is to actually increase the activity and the scope of these two pieces. So I don't know if personally I'm doing such an excellent job of explaining piece activity, which I define as mobility, and I know I've been covering a little bit about pawn structure, and you can tell how the or from the pawn structure you can get the open diagonals and open files and outposts for the various pieces. And then I want to talk about coordination in the next lecture.